I'm Nate Harrow. I'm 44. I live in Bellevue, Washington. Lead systems engineer at Dalton Strategic. At least, that's what my business card said. The project was the biggest we'd ever landed. 6.2 million from Linvale Freight for a full international logistics system. The thing was massive. Dynamic routing, real-time optimization, integrated compliance layers across borders. A monster. And I built it, alone, from scratch. The guys at the front? They couldn't explain half the code they were flashing on the screens. I watched Darren flip through a slide showing my adaptive flowchart model. He butchered it, completely skipped the logic layers, and misread his own damn notes. I clenched my jaw and looked down at the table, just to keep from calling him out. Warren kept saying, "We designed," and "our architecture," like he'd spent more than 2 seconds in the dev room. I remember him laughing once when I said I needed more time to fix a variable path issue. "Just make it work," he told me. That was his technical contribution. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. The final nail? When Elise Takahashi, Linvale's CEO, leaned forward and said, "Brilliant logic in this section. Who came up with that?" Warren smirked and said, "We've got a great team." That was it. No names, no credit, nothing. I didn't even realize I was gripping the chair until I felt my knuckles crack. As they wrapped up the presentation, everyone clapped. I didn't. I walked out before they finished the Q&A. My hands were shaking, not from nerves, from rage. I stood in the hallway for 10 minutes trying to get my breath back. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and walked straight to the parking garage. I didn't know where I was going yet. I just knew I wasn't going to be quiet about this. I pulled into my driveway and just sat there, engine running, hands clenched on the wheel. That brief Warren tossed at me 6 months ago. It hit different now. He'd chucked it across my desk like junk mail. "See if you can make sense of this." That was all he said. No one wanted the Linvale project. Too messy, too big, too damn risky. Layers of real-time data, international freight routes, regulatory variables across multiple continents. It was a black hole. Everyone else passed. I said yes. I was supposed to have dinner with my wife that night. Our anniversary, canceled it. Told her it was a career maker. I missed my buddy Chris's wedding 2 weeks later. Told him I'd make it up to him. Never did. Somewhere in the middle, I got strep and worked through it anyway, taking calls between coughing fits. I had the code in my head day and night, dreamed about it, woke up with solutions. I lived in that system. When I finally cracked the predictive optimization model, 3:09 a.m., Tuesday, I didn't even celebrate, just stared at the screen, dead-eyed, exhausted. Then I picked up the phone and called my dad. He answered half asleep. "Everything okay?" I think I just solved something people said wasn't solvable. There was a pause. Then he said, "Proud of you, son." Even though he didn't understand a damn word of what I was doing, still meant the world. That was 2 months ago. 2 weeks before the big pitch, things started getting weird. Warren called a bunch of alignment meetings I wasn't invited to. Business guys I'd never seen near a terminal suddenly started asking me about back-end logic they had no reason to care about. I knew something was off. Then, one afternoon, I got a ping from Marcus, just a FYI Slack message with a link to the slide deck for the upcoming Linvale presentation. No subject, no explanation. I clicked it. 48 pages, my framework, my data model, my system architecture, my algorithm. And not one mention of my name. I scrolled back up, slower this time. They'd reworded every section just enough to hide the trail. But I knew every damn line. I knew because I built it. I'd written the notes they stripped out. Half the visuals were exports I'd sent from my dev environment. They'd cut off the metadata, but didn't even bother renaming the components. I'd literally named one logic gate after my dog, Cooper Logic. It was still there. I closed the laptop and just sat there, shaking. Part fury, part disbelief. I'd seen people get stepped on in this place, but not like this. This was different. This was deliberate. I got up and walked over to Warren's office. He wasn't there. Door locked. Lights off. I turned around and saw Marcus coming out of the break room with a Diet Coke and a look that told me he knew exactly what I'd just seen. The next morning, I walked straight into the office without saying a word to anyone. I had the slide deck open on my tablet and a copy printed in my hand. I didn't knock, just opened Warren's door and stepped in. He looked up, annoyed. Can I help you? I dropped the printout on his desk. Yeah, you can tell me why my name isn't in this. He glanced at the first page, then leaned back in his chair. It's an exec-level presentation, Nate. You're better behind the curtain, aren't you? I didn't sit down. That's my system. That's my architecture, my logic model. Every framework in there came from my desk. It's Dalton's work, he said, already turning back to his phone. And frankly, you're not exactly client-facing. You don't have the polish. I clench my jaw. You mean I don't lie well enough? He didn't flinch. I mean, you're not exactly smooth. This isn't a tech demo. It's a sale, so you're stealing my work and giving it to Marcus because he wears better shoes? Warren sighed like I was a toddler having a tantrum. You need to understand how this company operates. I laughed, but it came out sharp. I've been playing the game for 8 years, trained half the guys you rely on. You wouldn't have landed Linvale if I hadn't taken that mess and turned it into a working system. I stepped closer to his desk. Try replacing me and see what happens when Linvale asks real questions. Warren crossed his arms. They won't? Because they're impressed with the team, not the tech. You think Elise Takahashi gives a damn how the code runs? She wants results. She's gonna care when your team can't explain her own specs, I shot back. Because you cut out the one person who actually understands the system. You're emotional, he said, brushing past me toward the door. This is why you stay in the back. I followed him out into the hallway. No, this is why people like me leave. Because we build everything, and guys like you slap your names on it. A few heads turned in the bullpen. Warren kept walking. I went back to my desk and sat down hard. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear. My monitor was still open to the Git logs, line after line of my commits, years of work, years of loyalty. And they wanted me to stay quiet because I didn't wear cufflinks or kiss ass in the break room. I opened my drawer, grabbed a legal pad, and started writing. Not reflections, not some diary, a list. Every contribution I'd made to the Linvale system. Every major breakthrough. Every key module with timestamps. Every email with proof of authorship. I printed a backup copy, scanned it, and uploaded it to my private drive. I wasn't going to argue about who built what. I was going to show them. Brick by brick. By lunch, I drafted an internal doc outlining the architecture in plain English. If Elise ever asked questions, she'd get answers. From me. Not from a clown in a blazer who couldn't spell JSON without a cheat sheet. By 5, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't asking for credit anymore. I was taking it. The conference room was glass-walled, cornered, and cold. I took a seat in the back, behind a fake potted plant, and out of camera view. The pitch was already in full swing. Marcus was talking about scalable logistics optimization, reading straight off the damn slides like a high schooler who didn't do the assignment. Warren stood by the screen, nodding like he understood any of it. Elise Takahashi, CEO of Linvale Freight, sat dead center at the table, eyes sharp, fingers steepled, watching everything, not a single blink wasted. Then she asked the question, how does your system respond to live atmospheric disruption across overlapping regions? Like rerouting during multi-port weather delays? The room froze. Warren blinked. Marcus flipped a page in the binder like the answer was hiding between the lines. Darren started to open his mouth, then shut it. I didn't move, not at first. I waited 3 full seconds. Then I spoke. The system adjusts routing in real time using layered predictive models. It's built into the core. It cross-references forecast data from multiple providers and optimizes route logic based on a weighted algorithm Elise turned around. Slowly. And you are? Warren stepped in fast. That's Nate. He helped with some back-end modules. I stood up and stepped forward. Actually, I designed the entire system architecture. The algorithm you're referring to came from a paper I published last year on multi-source predictive logistics. You could feel the air suck out of the room. Elise raised an eyebrow. Then I'd like you to walk us through it. Warren's jaw flexed. I picked up the marker and moved to the whiteboard. 40 minutes, I said. That's what it'll take to explain it properly. She nodded. Let's hear it. So I did. I started with the root logic, how the system separates static and dynamic variables. Then I moved into the predictive layers, walked them through real-time data ingestion, regulatory rerouting compliance, and the fallback protocols in case of API failure. No one interrupted, not once. Marcus didn't speak. Darren pretended to type. Warren just stood in the corner, arms crossed, staring through me like I didn't exist. When I finished, Elise sat back in her chair and said, "That's the first explanation today that made actual sense." She stood up and looked at Warren. "Can I borrow him for 5 minutes?" He nodded like he had a choice. We stepped into the hallway. Elise crossed her arms. "You built that system?" I didn't hesitate. Every line of it. "And you weren't listed on the deck?" "No." "Why?" "Because it's easier to polish a turd than train an engineer. Apparently, I'm the turd." She almost smiled. "I've met a lot of software guys. You're not typical, is that good or bad?" "It's rare." She paused. "We want your signature on the technical documentation." "Not his," I blinked. "Say that again?" "You heard me. If we're deploying a system this complicated, I want the architect's name on it, not a guy who can't explain how it works." I nodded slowly. "Okay." "Also," she added, "next time someone tries to sideline you, speak up sooner." That was impressive. She walked away. I stood there in the hallway like the floor had dropped out under me. By the time I got home that night, I was wired and wrecked all at once. I didn't eat, didn't turn on the TV, just paced the living room like I was on trial. The words kept bouncing around in my head. "We want your signature, not his." That line hit deeper than I thought it would. Around 2 a.m., I opened my laptop and started typing. The next morning, I walked into the office with a manila folder under my arm. Inside were 5 printed pages. Terms, titles, numbers. I waited until Warren showed up. Didn't matter that his door was still closed. I walked right in. He looked up, scowled. "What now?" I dropped the folder on his desk. "Here's what it's going to take to keep this deal alive." Warren didn't even open the folder before he lost it. "You selfish bastard," he snapped. "You think this is how we operate? Blindsiding me in front of a client?" I didn't flinch. "I didn't blindside anyone. I saved your ass when you froze." He stood up, face red. "You undermined the team." I stayed calm, steady. "Elise wants my name on the specs." "You want the deal? Those are my conditions." He finally opened the folder and skimmed the list. His eyebrows jumped. Lead architect, implementation lead, and a 14% raise. "You've lost your mind." "It's still less than Marcus makes," I said. "This is extortion." "No," I said flat. "It's leverage. I'm the reason this deal isn't dead in the water right now." He stared at me, jaw clenched, lips twitching like he wanted to say something worse, but couldn't figure out how to spin it. I didn't give him the chance. "You've got until 5 o'clock. I walked out and headed straight to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and sat on the closed toilet lid. I stayed there for 20 minutes just trying to breathe. My shirt was stuck to my back. My palms were slick. But I wasn't scared. Not really. I was done begging for scraps. By noon, HR had called a clarification meeting. I showed up. 2 reps, 1 from legal. Warren stayed silent the whole time while the suits danced around the word ownership. "We'd like to offer a performance bonus and a formal acknowledgement in the implementation notes," one of them said, like they were doing me a favor. I shook my head. "Not enough." "What exactly are you asking for here, Nate?" "I already told you." Title, role, raise. Full authorship credit on the system design. Titles are reviewed annually. "You've got until 5. I stood up and walked out. The rest of the day was a blur. People around the office were whispering, some watching me like I'd lit a match and was walking through a gas station. I didn't care. I went back to my desk, turned off Slack, and stared at the clock. My leg bounced the entire afternoon. 4 p.m., no word. 4:30, still quiet. I started wondering if I'd pushed too far, if Warren was going to let the whole thing crash just to prove a point. But at 4:52, my email pinged. Subject line: updated terms, Linvale implementation. Lead. I opened it. Lead architect, approved. Implementation. Lead, approved, raise. 10% now, 4 more post-launch. Documentation. Full authorship attribution in all specs. Was it everything I asked for? Number, but it was enough. I exhaled so hard I got lightheaded. I closed the email, leaned back in my chair, and finally let myself smile. Not big, just enough to know I wasn't crazy. They'd tried to erase me, and now my name was carved into the deal. The day after the deal got locked in. CC'd me on midnight emails with timelines no human could meet. Reassigned my documentation tasks without telling me. In meetings, he'd say, "Can someone from Nate's team speak to that?" Like I wasn't 5 feet away. I didn't respond, not verbally. I let the work do it for me. I built my own crew for the implementation. Picked 2 junior devs Dalton had been sitting on forever, Tyler and Jamal, both sharp as hell, hungry, and way more loyal than the polished clowns Warren usually propped up. We ran fast and clean. Weekly updates, sprint logs, no fluff. Elise stayed looped in the whole time. We had a standing call every Friday morning. She never rushed, never interrupted, always came with real questions. She was the only reason I stayed sane. 3 months in, the system was humming. We were running stress tests across live data sets, and the whole thing held like steel. Elise asked to meet in person, casual, just coffee. We picked a spot halfway between the offices, small place in Pioneer Square. Cold morning. She showed up early. "You look tired," she said, sliding into the booth. "I look like a guy managing 3 departments with no backup." She smiled. "You've done more in 3 months than some full teams do in a year. I appreciate that." She stirred her coffee. "So, why are you still at Dalton?" I blinked. "Excuse me? You've already delivered the system. Your team's solid. Warren's not giving you room to grow. So, why are you still there? I've got history. Equity vesting. Responsibility." She cut in, calm but firm. "You shouldn't still be there, Nate. You've outgrown that place." I sat back. Not exactly a light conversation for a Tuesday. "I'm not here to make small talk," she said. Then she pulled out a folded page from her coat and placed it on the table. "We want you at Linvale. Lead role, direct line to the CTO, team building authority. You name your number, I didn't touch the paper. You're serious?" "I don't do half serious," she said. "You've earned this." I didn't have anything to say. I just sat there, staring at the offer like it might disappear if I blinked. Elise leaned forward. "We're not asking you to jump ship in the middle of the build. Finish what you started, but after that, we'd be lucky to have you." She stood up, left the paper on the table, and walked out without another word. I sat there long after she was gone, still staring at it. Because I knew something had just shifted, for real this time. I didn't touch the paper until I got back to my car. Door shut, heater on full blast. I unfolded it like it might explode. Double my current salary, equity, full team building authority, reporting directly to Linvale's CTO. At the bottom, Elise's note in her own handwriting: "Finish the implementation first. We want you, but we won't ask you to burn bridges." It wasn't just an offer. It was an escape plan. I walked into Dalton with that folded page in my jacket pocket like it was burning a hole through the lining. Every passive-aggressive email, every hallway glance, every BS late-night task from Warren. It all slid off me, like background noise. Static. Didn't matter anymore. I had a clock running now. 2 months left. So I buried myself in the work. Tyler and Jamal were machines. We pushed through edge case testing, tuned the live data sync, hardened the rollback protocols. Elise checked in twice a week now. Her questions were sharp, but always respectful. She never once asked for updates Warren should have delivered. She already knew who the real lead was. Meanwhile, Warren sulked in silence. I caught him once outside the server room, trying to talk circles around Jamal about versioning. Jamal didn't take the bait. Just said, "You'll have to ask Nate," and walked off. I never said a word about the offer. Not to the team, not to HR, not even to my wife. I just worked. And when launch day came, we were ready. The event was small. Linvale didn't like splashy. Conference room at their headquarters. A few internal folks, the CTO, Elise, and us. My team stood in the back. I didn't even know Warren was there until I saw his reflection in the glass. Standing alone, shoulders tight. After the demo, Elise stepped to the front with a single folder in hand. She handed me a formal letter of commendation, signed by the CTO and herself. I didn't say anything. I just nodded and took it, my hands were steady. For the first time in a long time. Warren didn't clap. He just stood there in the corner, arms folded, looking like a school kid forced to watch someone else win. That night, I went home and laid the letter flat on my kitchen table, and right next to it, I placed the offer. The future was already in motion. I resigned the next morning, dropped the letter on Warren's desk without a word. He didn't ask why, just nodded once, like he saw it coming. 2 weeks later, I walked out with a single box under my arm. No cake, no card. Just freedom. Day one at Linvale, Julian Chen, the CTO, met me at the door himself. "Let me show you around," he said, smiling like we were about to build something worth remembering. He walked me through the new division. Bigger budget, better tools, real autonomy. "Build your team however you want," he told me. "You've earned it." So I did. First hires, Tyler and Jamal. No hesitation. Then I pulled in 2 more. One from UX, another from integration. Both sharp, both undervalued at Dalton. They said yes instantly. Then the floodgates opened. People I barely knew started reaching out. Engineers, analysts, testers. Some I hadn't spoken to in years. "Heard you made the jump," they'd say. "Any room on your team?" I couldn't hire them all, but I listened. I made intros, I passed on names, I opened doors wherever I could. 6 months in, Dalton lost the Portwell contract, the one they'd bragged about for years. Linvale picked it up using our system. Seamless transition, not a single missed delivery window. That one stung them. A year later, Warren got restructured out. Word around the industry was they blamed talent attrition. I didn't gloat, didn't post anything, but I saw the email chains. He was finished. 2 years after I left, I spoke at a systems engineering conference in Seattle, packed room. I was on stage mid-talk when I saw him, back row, slouched in a folding chair, hair thinner, eyes tired. He looked like hell. We made eye contact. I didn't smile, just nodded once. That was all. Afterward, a kid approached me near the water table, probably mid-20s, hoodie, notebook full of scribbles. "What you said," he said quietly. "That's what I'm living right now." I handed him my card. No pitch, no promise. Just said what Elise once told me. There's another way. 5 years after I walked out of Dalton for good, I got an email from a recruiter. They were looking to fill a senior systems architect role. The company, Dalton Strategic. I didn't reply, but I forwarded the listing to 2 engineers I respected, with a note at the top that said, "Ask for double." Their desperate success was great, but the real win, never needing their approval again.